I realize I haven't said this. I do not say this as much as I should. So, here on this channel, what we do is to encourage ourselves to tap into that creative genius that we all have. Each and every one of us, we have this innate creativity that we tend to suppress from time to time, knowingly or unknowingly. Right here on this channel, I remind you of these things. I open our eyes to the beauties that abound around these things. I do all that a genie should do, and then I try to hover around you with the never mind. Welcome on this channel. Let's dive right into it. Yesterday was May 1st, Workers' Day. I feel like here in Nigeria, our own Workers' Day was screaming, Mayday, Mayday. And not in the way we know it, in the way that, people in need of rescue would shout Mayday. But we'll get into all of that in a minute. So, first off, I am starting out by saying Happy Workers' Day to each and every one of us, every worker. If you're a creative, if you work in the oil and gas sector, if you're a civil servant, if you're in the accounting sector, to every worker all over the world, this is me saying Happy Workers' Day to you. Please, if you hear any sound, I think something is going on with my lighting. Like you know already, I'm trying out a whole lot of things. So this is a new concept. Let's work with it, all right? Let's work with it until we get what we want and we stick to it. So yeah, it was actually quite a colorful celebration here in Nigeria. I think somewhere in France thereabout. The rally took a different route. If I find a picture to this, I will, put it somewhere on the screen. The rally took a different route, and for a country such as ours, Nigeria, and with the things we go through, one would think that our own Workers' Day may lead to, but then, thankfully, everything went as normal and peaceful as it should be. In fact, I was very appreciative of how colorful it was. I mean, these are workers who are underpaid, overworked, etc., etc., not appreciated enough, but they came out in mass, dressed in very many, like I said, very colorful rallies. And then they took out time to parade because, like we know here, like we all know, Nigerians, we know they give up. Do you understand? So yeah, the not giving up spirit was very much well seen on every rally ground all around the country, and I commend every work. I commend all of us. And following that trend, Following that trend, our very own P2B took the podium at Abuja. He gave a speech. Please let me know in the comment section if you listened to his speech. You know he's an orator. People like P2B, when they stand to speak, you stop and listen. Because he always has a lot to say. He brought in his wit, that very uniqueness that made him, that we all, love about him. And he carried everyone along. I wish I can play part of what he said, part of his speech on here, but let me shelve that for conversations that we are to have in the comment section. This particular Workers' Day celebration, like we all know, it's kind of different from the other ones we've been having. Just like I just said, what happened in the last election, put all of us in that patriotic position, made our antennas to stand, especially in much more than it has always stood, especially in things that concerns politics, our rights in the society and all of that. So and then much more important is the fact that this is the last Workers' Day that this present government will force will how will I put it, will oversee. And then this is the first Workers' Day for the incoming, for the incoming president and the incoming government to start carrying on with. So everybody that needed to be on ground was on ground. This one was not like the other ones that, we already know that it is what it is. No, people will not have that gusto. On this very one, like I said, everybody that was supposed to be on ground was on ground. Ngige was there, Dr. Ngige was there. He, gave speeches. Most governors were present. Governor Baseki's speech was one of the ones that when you hear, in fact, that type of speech that when you want to prepare for prepare for something impending to happen, you will need a speech to gear you up for what is to happen. And so his speech was, very deep and spoke straight to the heart of the issue at the moment. He talked about he talked about workers being patient even much more now than any other time, because we know here in Nigeria, our workers, especially our civil servants, are the ones that endure the most hardship, and and this is across all sectors. We see what's going on with the medical line. We see what's going on with the teaching, the education line. I mean, it's a mess, we know. And so he spoke to the core of this whole, the whole thing, without dwelling too much on the different talk and speech that governors gave, because we can continue on it and the whole video will run out. We have so many other things to touch on. I would love to hear what you have to say in the comment section. Carry me through. Let me understand your thought pattern, especially when it comes to what you understand and what you foresee from what Obaseki said, how you follow through Obi's speech. I want to quickly touch on how the rally went here in Port Harcourt. It was also interesting to see how the head of the union here in Port Harcourt spoke to the incoming governor. They have a lot of expectations, but the most outstanding one is the salary review that they've been calling on. They said some of their counterparts in Bayelsa have already started out this one and they are looking to this change. We would love to see how these governors will pay heed to issues that were raised on the platform of what happened yesterday. This is my own podium. I will not leave this podium without mentioning the parades, the marchings. Hey, we no say we too like marching for this our Niger. So you needed to see our pot-bellied daddies and mommies, myself included, although I was not physically on ground, but it was amazing to see dedication to service. I think I've mentioned this before, and from the clips you're seeing on the screen, the sweet belle small, irrespective of whatsoever it is that they are facing at the moment. And then the fun time that it created, you could see these ones laughing, having a field day. They understood the assignment and they went straight to do what they came to do. And if you ask me, that has to be a very commendable one from every sector in every work sector in Nigeria. Still on that trend, it might interest you to know that yes, in fact, if you call this my video the summary of all the speeches from yesterday, I will agree, because the next point I am going to talk on has to do with the speech of our dear beloved Dr. Ngige. After he gave his regular usual speech at the square in Abuja, he had a one-on-one talk with journalists at Channels TV. I had to sit to follow through on this one because that speech he gave on that square was not for me. I needed to see him sit one-on-one and hear what he had to say. And then you could tell that he was just trying to play Terminator. He was just dodging a whole lot of trying to play safe, indirect political responses. That was what he was giving, indirect, and then it will be maxed with some sort of political whatever, trying for you not to get through to him. But you could tell that a whole lot of what he said was just what it was. It's important that you as a Nigerian worker, you are privy of a lot of information out there, especially if you are bound by some constraints of the Nigerian, working sphere, and how to stand your grounds when necessary. So right after the interview with Dr. Ngige, guess who else they called in? Hey.
The court's ruling, one from Abuja, the other from
Honorable Kenneth Okonkwo. He came with his chest full.
They are not politicians of conviction, they are not politicians of fortitude. I'm here to tell you that you should not ever call them a faction of Labour Party. There is no crisis in Labour Party. Article 13, 1B, IB says it is only the National Convention that can elect or remove the national officers. And then Article 13, 2B.
I will not play everything so that our very beloved young man will not be quoted out of context.
XBI and XBII. He said it is only the NEC that can replace the vacancy in any national office. And it is only the NEC that can discipline any national officer. So please, these people you're calling that they are a faction of Labour Party, who brought them in as leaders of the national, as the national officers of Labour Party? Please, they are not.
My Honorable Kenneth Okonkwo poured a lot of anointing on whoever needed it. It turns out that there are speculations that here and there surrounding the unity in Labour Party, and that took me back. Just to summarize what he said, there seemed to have been some sort of animosity within squabble, call it whatever you may, within the Labour Party. And yesterday, hearing this, I was like, really? Really? You needed to see how Kenneth Okonkwo, our very own Andy Okeke, for those of us who really do not know him, he is a legal practitioner. He was one of the leading voices of our dear beloved Labour Party, right from the time of the elections and all through. His voice has been loud and clear. He doesn't mince words. And so to hear that there was some sort of ruckus, it broke my heart. It broke my heart. Human beings are one of the most ungovernable, like we're difficult to deal with. As much as it is beautiful that we are complex and different in our own, different ways, in our own right minds and everything, it can also be very daunting. It can be very challenging. So if you see a group where someone came out as being a leader, be it women group, adult group, youth group, any form of group whatsoever, and any individual coming out to say I was the ex what, and that person came out without a scandal, came out without any emotional upheaval, came out without any scratch, omo, it is another reason to go give thanks, because human beings we are very difficult to deal with. We are very difficult to govern, very difficult to put our ideas, our opinions in one bunch. So away from all this jargon, away from all this plenty grammar that we've been talking since, let me know if you heard with me, or maybe I am too old now that my ear is not hearing correctly. Please let me know if you heard one particular minister stating out the rights of a worker in Nigeria, of workers here in Nigeria. Did you hear that part where he mentioned that every worker in Nigeria can only go into agriculture as a side hustle, meaning you're not allowed to do any other thing except going into agriculture as a side hustle? See, as my head was full, my tummy was leaking, my ear was seeing, and my eyes was hearing. I could not understand. Yes, you heard me correct. I could not understand. The confusion that held me was too much that I was beginning to query what it was that he was saying. Let me not go further, but I want to hear in the comment section, did you hear this, or was I the only one that heard it? Please, if you did, let's continue this conversation in the comment section. I would want to say what I actually think is going on with all these laws and regulations. And this is why you, as a Nigerian worker, should know all these parameters and all these paragraphs and all these quotations, so that you will know that when these things are standing against your right as a human being, forget the fact that you're a worker first. so that you will know when these things are standing against your rights first as a human being, because we all know what the minimum wage in these countries, the level of minimum wage. And so let's not begin to tempt ourselves with some kind of things. What areas would you want workers to benefit more? A lot of people kept talking about salary increments. I mean, yes, a lot of things hinges on, the money and the remuneration that these workers take home at the end of the day, but there are so many other benefits that should be looked into: the allowances, etc., etc., the leaves, the pension policies, and all of that. I believe it has to be a well-rounded package, right, for it to be as enticing as enough for our younger generations coming in. There are so many factors that we can look into, we can keep talking about. And I hope and believe that this next incoming government will do much more than we have presented to them. Because right here in Rivers State, a lot of things were talked about, but so much more was hinged on salary increment, there are so many more benefits that need to be reviewed for the present day Nigerian worker. And to finally state my last point, and this has to be one of the most interesting ones: are you following up with what is going on with that bill that is creating shackles on Nigerian doctors? Have you followed any part of the conversation as it regards the bill? Please read it up on this side or this side. Oyibo Esika. Yeah, so have you followed up? There are people who believe that this will not hurt us at the end of the day. There are people who are sitting on the fence on this one, and I am one of those who are sitting on the fence, and I'll give you my reasons also in the comment section. But someone has to start this comment section conversation. There are people who also are completely against this bill. Dr. Ngige, when he was asked, he likened it to killing a fly with a sledgehammer. In as much as I will say that he was trying to be too dramatic with his depiction, there is no other way, no better way to try to paint the picture that it will come out accurate. It will not be a complete Mayday celebration from this end if I do not talk about what affects me as a creative here in Nigeria. And so, as creatives, our space on the NLC will be very much appreciated. This space may not be fully established right now. We know this. But as creatives, if we eventually get to see openings for what we do as a body in the NLC, that will catapult this creative sector in Nigeria to a whole new ground. The society is gradually grabbing up on these things. I mean, 80% of Nigerians now know who Mr. Macaroni is, coming from the comedy section. 80 to 85% of people now know who CCME is, coming from the new inventions, the beautiful things she has done, coming from a creative aspect of the food industry. I mean, I can keep going on and on. We know what these creatives have done so far, how they are pushing it, pressing the button harder for people like us to have that, soft landing, if I put it that way. Thank you so much for coming with me on this one. Like and subscribe, the whole shebang, you know it already. Until the next one, stay blessed.